Hello friends, this video is created by Siddharth Upadhyay, founder and creator of PrepWings. Log on to www.prepwings.com for complete free course videos. Okay, so in this video we'll talk about the argument essay in detail. First we will look at the strategy for the argument essay, which we did in the last video. Okay, so our strategy for the argument essay says, first you read and understand the argument prompt. Then you find out flaws in the argument, then you find out points for the flaws, and then you write the essay in a predefined format, and finally you proofread the essay that you have written. Okay, so this is the strategy that we'll follow for the argument essay. Now, in any argument provided in the exam, there will be a conclusion for the argument. So conclusion is the main point that the argument seeks to make, okay, or the main idea of the argument. Okay, so that is the conclusion, and every argument on the exam will have a conclusion. Okay. In addition to conclusion, there will always be a premise, okay, or different premises. So premise is the reason for conclusion. Okay, so there will be a conclusion in the argument, and then there will be certain reasons for drawing out the conclusion. So the conclusion is the main idea, and premise is the reason for conclusion. Okay. So now for any argument provided, first you find out the conclusion and then you find out the premise. Okay, because premise is the reason for conclusion. So first I need to know the conclusion to find the premise. Alright. So first we find the conclusion and then we find the premise. Now after we know the premise and the conclusion, flaws can be found by questioning how the premise leads to conclusion. Okay. So be careful that you do not question the truthfulness of the premise, okay, but you question how the premise leads to conclusion. Alright. So always believe the premise to be true. So whatever information that you've been given as premise should be believed to be true. You cannot question the premise. Okay. But you have to question how the premise leads to conclusion. Okay. And questioning how premise leads to conclusion will help you find the flaws. Alright. We'll look at an example now. So an example is shown here with an argument prompt and with an argument question. So the prompt says that Metaland, a small country, is just able to meet demands of diamond products within the country. Currently, Metaland's diamond needs are fulfilled by diamond production within the country. However, per capita income of Metaland has been on steady increase in the past few years and is predicted to increase in the future as well. If the prediction of per capita income holds true, Metaland will need more diamond and thus it will have to import diamonds to fulfill its diamond needs. Okay. So this is the argument prompt provided to us. The argument question says that write a response in which you discuss what specific evidence is needed to evaluate the argument and explain how the evidence would weaken or strengthen the argument. Alright. Now, if you look at the prompt again, the conclusion that we can draw from the argument is that Metaland will need more diamond and thus it will have to import diamonds to fulfill its diamond needs. Okay, this is the main idea of the argument prompt provided to us. The reasons for it or the premise for it is, so per capita income is increasing. Okay, so that is provided as a reason. Also, it says that currently Metaland fulfills its diamond needs by producing diamonds within the country. Okay, so this is also provided as a reason to us. Okay. Okay, so after looking at the conclusion and the premise, we will now look at the flaws. Okay, so the argument says that increase in per capita income should lead to an increase in the demand of diamond. Okay, but increase in per capita income does not necessarily mean an increase in demand for diamond. Okay, so increase in per capita income might lead to an increase in demand of some other product or might not even lead to increase in demand of any product. Okay, so our first flaw is that increase in per capita income does not necessarily mean an increase in demand for diamond. Okay, now our second flaw is that even if diamond demand increases, diamond production within the country can be increased and thus there is no need to import the diamond. Okay, So the argument actually says that there will be a need to import diamond. Alright, because currently the diamond demands is met from the production within the country. Okay, going ahead, if demand increases, the production can also increase. So there is no evidence over here which says that the production cannot increase. Okay, thus even if diamond demand increases, diamond production within the country can be increased. Alright, so this is our second flaw. Now the third flaw is that the argument uses words such as increase and more. Okay, so whenever an argument uses words like increase, more, decrease, many, some, few, always be aware of it. Okay, because over here in the argument it says that the per capita income will increase. Okay, but what if the per capita increases but not significantly? Okay, so for example, the per capita income of my country is say $10,000, okay, annually, and it increased to $10,001 annually. Okay, so it has increased, but it's just an increase of $1 for 1 year, which is not a very significant increase. Okay, so if words such as increased is used, that doesn't mean that the increase is significant over here. Okay, also there is a word used more, okay, wherein it says that metal land needs more diamonds going ahead. Okay, so more diamonds going ahead again is an increase. So increase in demand might not be significant enough again. Okay, so if I need, for example, 10,000 diamonds today, going ahead I might just need 10,001 diamond. Okay, so which is an increase in demand, but it's not a very significant increase. Okay, so words such as increase and more also provide us with a flaw over here in the argument. Okay, keep in mind the most important flaw for this argument is the first flaw that we listed, which says that increase in per capita income does not necessarily mean an increase in demand for diamond. Okay, this is the most important flaw of the argument that has been made here. So now, after we have found the flaws, we have to write the essay. So the structure of argument essay is shown here. So in the first paragraph, which is an introductory paragraph, we should first paraphrase the argument, which is write the argument in our own words. And then we have to write a however line, okay, which states that the argument has flaws. So what we'll do is first we'll paraphrase the argument and then we'll say something like that the argument seems logical at first glance, but there are certain things that the argument misses. Or you can say that the argument seems fine at first, however there are certain flaws in the argument. Okay, so that is why we need a however line over there, okay, which says that their argument has certain flaws. Then in the next paragraph, what you do is you explain the biggest flaw with reasoning and examples. So for example, in the previous argument that we did just now, the biggest flaw was that increase in per capita income might not necessarily mean an increase in demand for diamond. Okay, so we have to state this flaw and explain this flaw, okay, in the second paragraph. In the third paragraph, we explain the second flaw with reasoning and example. Similarly, in the fourth paragraph, we explain the third flaw with reasoning and example. Okay, and in the final paragraph, which is the fifth paragraph, which is the concluding paragraph, we'll briefly touch upon the flaws, okay, and we'll conclude that we need more evidence for the conclusion to follow. Okay, so this is how an argument essay should be structured. Now we'll look at few types of flaws that are presented in argument prompts. So first is a reasoning flaw, in which the reasons for the conclusion are not strong enough. Okay, so the flaws that we found out in the metal land example were basically the reasons were not strong enough. So those were mainly reasoning flaws. Then there is a cause and effect flaw. Okay, so there are certain arguments in which cause and effect is stated. Okay, so the argument states that the cause leads to effect. So a major flaw can be that opposite can be true. Okay, that means in reality the effect leads to the cause, okay, and not the cause leading to the effect. Also, the effect might not be because of the cause stated. It might be because of something else. Okay, so these are the kind of flaws in cause and effect kind of an argument. Okay. Now there are arguments which uses surveys and statistics, okay, to prove their point. Okay, so they use surveys and statistics as part of the premise, okay, or the reasons. So the flaw over there can be that the survey or statistic might not be representative of the group for which the conclusion is drawn. Okay, so for example, if I do a survey for school students and I make a conclusion for college students, okay, so in that case the survey might not be a correct representation over there. All right, and then as we seen before, there are words such as increase, decrease, more, many, few, some, etc., which can provide us a flaw in an argument. Okay, so keep in mind of these types of flaws: the reasoning flaws, the cause and effect flaw, survey and statistics flaw, and words such as increase, decrease, more, many, few, some, etc. Okay. Now finally, we will take a look back at the strategy for the argument essay once again. Okay. So the strategy for the argument essay is that we first read and understand the argument prompt, then we find out the flaws in the argument, we find out points for the flaws, then we write the essay in the predefined format, and finally we proofread the essay we wrote. Okay, so this is all about the argument essay. Thanks a lot for watching this